Welcome everyone to Macro Social Work Stories. We have a wonderful guest here on today from hails from the country of Barbados. So today we're doing some new things where we're able to cross the seas, able to have a guest to share their lived experience from the social work perspective. And so welcome to Macro Social Work Stories. My name is Dr. Gary Jones, and our guest is Ms. Pauline Miller. I'm going to do a brief introduction of our guest as we begin on today. Today, we know that in the month of March, is Social Work Awareness Month, as well as Women's History Month. And so we would like to thank Ms. Pauline for the work she's doing as a social worker and as a leader in her community. And so, Ms. Pauline Miller, we're going to do a brief bio. She's married for over 15 years to Mr. Ryan Miller. Had the privilege of working with Mr. Miller with a production we did where we recognized the work of healthcare and mental health professionals in Barbados. And so I had the opportunity to work with Mr. Miller, and he speaks numerous languages. When I grew up, I love to speak several languages. So we want to thank him for the work that they're doing together. They have two minor children. She's a Christian who attends the Western Light Church of Nazarene. She began a social work career at the age of 23. And kind of an accident maybe because her introvert. Many of us are introverts. We think we are, but when it comes to bring about change, it's something that emerges out of us when we partner with individuals and communities to bring about change when we see things from a different perspective. And so she has a bachelor's degree in sociology and political science, and began her career in the National Insurance Department, but was later transferred into the welfare department as a welfare officer. Later, she went to obtain her degree, a BSW from in Jamaica, and then her MSW. And so we can talk about that experience as well. And her research focus, which I appreciate, study is a qualitative research study that looked at the I've lost my place there, where she looked at the single parents, mothers in the Southside country of Kingston, Jamaica. And this study kind of launched her career with looking at teens, where teens and their intervention with child abuse strategies of self-help and self-improvement and self-worth and personal development. And these workshops she do to look at mental health and the importance of obtaining mental health and networking. Currently, she is the director where she is over seven welfare officers, the largest complement of a welfare officer per section, who covers St. Philip, St. Joseph, St. George, and Christian Church. There are only 4 auxiliary staff members and associate staff members under her supervision. Most importantly, Ms. Miller engaged in social work practice at every level. Here at Macro Social Work Practice, we talk about how we address at the macro, the meso, and the micro level. She employs a system perspective to analyze situations and implement treatment intervention professionally and privately. She says social work is innate and is naturally incorporated. Ms. Pauline Miller, welcome to Macro Social Work Stories.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. And so, as we spend our time on today, we just want to begin with a fun fact. A fun fact for those who may not know about you, your colleagues or your family. A fun fact you want to share with us.
Oh boy. I was just racking my head about a fun fact about myself. I don't know. There are many things about myself that people don't know. People don't know I'm a musician. I play the clarinet. I actually did grade up to grade 5 in theory music. And I got a perfect distinction at that. And there were only 2 of us on the island at that particular time that actually got a perfect distinction. I love art. I love natural beauty. I've always been good at those kind of things. I've been into photography.
Okay.
I like nature, near things like the sun and the sea and just the clouds. Those things amazes me, and greenery, the different colors of green on the plants, the trees. Those things are fascinating to me. So I don't know what to say about fun fact. I
Yeah.
could just tell you
Yeah.
about facts about myself, basically.
Yeah. So wonderful. Yes. As an artist and musician, all those things are therapeutic. And we know that dealing in a stressful society, we need to have outlets. We need that outlets of self-care, therapeutic, where we could be in the moment where we can look at things from a different perspective. I was looking at your bio, and you'll notice that one of the responsibilities of your staff, your team, was to manage the messages and to try to discuss how the area that you reside in will address the pandemic. And so, what were some things your team did to support the community as well as the structure that you worked in to address the numerous issues that emerged during the it's still going on during the pandemic?
Yes. Um, That's a very good question. I have to back it up a bit.
Okay.
So I want to say that the social work service that I work for, the welfare department, is one of the largest in the country.
Oh,
And might I say the largest in the Caribbean in terms of what we actually do. There are a lot of services that we do offer. We offer lots of cash grants for persons who are, living in poverty, and a number. We help with school clothing. We help with clothing in general. We help with spectacles, dentures, you name it, hearing aids, everything practically the government actually helps out the community with. In
mhm.
2018, the country is faced with high national debt, and we had a bit of restructuring. They implemented the work program, and we saw a number of people actually going home. So this is before COVID, and lots of people then came to be part of the welfare system because there's nothing. You could only get unemployment for so long. So then you still have bills to pay, you still have to feed your children, they still have to go to school. So, and that had started a number of clients. The clientele actually multiplied
Okay.
during that particular period, and that was pre-COVID.
Mm.
So on top of that, then COVID came,
Oh,
which
okay.
added which added to it all. And then it was like clients multiplied 4 times the amount that we had. So if we were
Mm,
dealing with 5,000 persons, imagine that multiplied by 4.
mm,
So then it became like sort of like a crisis because you're navigating trying to navigate new systems in that there are
mhm.
lockdowns, you're working from home, you have to utilize the technology more,
Yes.
and you have more clients actually coming to the department for aid because you're the only outlet that they can look to at this point in
Mhm,
time because more people are away from work and
mhm.
the economy is not slow. We are a tourism economy, and there are no tourists coming. So there's
Yeah.
no income in the society circulating. So then we were faced with this. And on top of that, there are online applications now. So before persons used to come into the department. So now everybody is utilizing the technology. So with
Yeah.
online applications, we have persons who would apply today, and if you don't hear from anybody, you're applying tomorrow. So
Mm,
imagine
mm.
it was just an influx of
Massive.
applications
Yes.
coming.
Okay.
So with that, we had to try to navigate. And I must tell you this personally, because I was not a part of everything when it first started. Because
Mm,
personally, I was very ill. I had slipped disc, so I was
mhm.
away from work for about a whole year.
Okay.
So I still knew what was going on because we had a chat.
Mhm.
So I was able
Okay.
to, my input there and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But I wasn't physically there. But what
Okay.
we found was that there's so many people coming to the department, and the staff members have first been decreased because of the restructuring before COVID,
Mhm.
and now with COVID, you have so many. applicants and no more staff members. So the ratio to client versus worker was way beyond, and
Yes.
still is beyond
Yes.
what is actually practical. So that is what we were trying to navigate. So we had to find like innovative ways to try to
Mhm.
deal with the number of persons who actually come into the department. And most people, they're coming for food, and food is like an immediate need because it's upfront. If your children are hungry, and if you're hungry, it sends the message that you need to have this need met
Mhm.
very urgently. Basically,
Yes.
it's not something that you can say, okay, I can wait on spectacles. I can't wait on
Mhm.
food. You need to eat, right?
Yeah.
So those are some of the things that we've been trying to navigate as a result of COVID. On top of COVID, then we had ashfall.
Mhm.
So the volcano in St. Vincent erupted, and we got all the ash over here. So Barbados for a number of weeks been dark because of the ash fall. So working under those conditions was quite difficult. And then following that, the same year, you had freak storms. This means they just came out of nowhere. You didn't know that they were coming. And they did a lot of damage to the to the houses and
Mhm.
to homes. And following that, then we had Hurricane Elsa.
Mm. So
So we
you
had a
you
lot of people who were
mhm.
displaced.
So you kind of gave the context that things that happened pre-COVID that impacted the day-to-day lives of many community members, and how prior to this pandemic happening, there was an influx of a need, a greater need, immediate needs for community members. And so on top of the needs of community members, then we had a pandemic, then we have natural
Disasters.
disasters, and then we
Mhm.
have additional two. You said volcanoes as well as a hurricane,
Yes.
on top of other things during that time period. Thank you for setting the context of the work that you and your colleagues were doing during this time period. And so um, that dealing with environmental crises as well as a pandemic was not something we planned for. But we know that you and your team rallied.
No.
You said that you
But in our region,
go ahead. You said in your region.
I'm sorry, I don't know if you're hearing me.
Yes, I hear you. Yes, I hear you. You can go ahead. Yes,
Okay.
I hear
I
you.
wasn't hearing you at that point in time.
Okay. We're just talking about you saying that how you couldn't plan for this. You couldn't plan for all the different things that compounded at the same time. And so you talked about your colleagues and what you all did you were doing, and then I guess you didn't hear me. Can you hear me now? Okay. All right. And so you're talking about the various things that your colleagues were doing during the time period. And so
I'm
as we
sorry,
look
we're
at
getting an interruption and I'm not hearing very well.
okay, all right. So let me go into the settings, audio. Okay. Can you hear me now? Yes. No. Yes. Can you hear me? I hear you. I hear you.
I'm hearing a little, but it's breaking up. So I'm not sure
Okay.
if it's on my end.
Okay. I'm not sure either.
But yes, we had the pandemic and then all of these natural disasters, and we still had the same staff complement. So that posed a bit of difficulty in how we handle the numbers, and it still does because a number of people are still on the waiting list, and
Mhm.
we've been trying to curb the numbers so they are more manageable. But to be honest, it's so much you can do. one person to the hundreds of people who come per zone who actually needs the assistance.
Yeah, yeah. And so, emergency management is something that we've talked about the last couple of weeks on with different entities dealing with emergency management. As we talk about your experience in Barbados, what is an average day of a social worker like? If someone to say share your experience, if someone wanted to enter the field of social work in your country, the average day.
Okay, so the average day is a hectic day. It's a hectic day every single day. And sometimes it comes like the more you do, the more there is to do. So you're going and you never have enough hours in the day to complete the task that you actually need to complete because it never ends. And I guess for different social work agencies, it's going to be different because not all social work agencies are as hectic as this social work agency, the welfare department, because of the demand that is actually required from the department. So some persons will give you a different viewpoint, but basically from the time you get in, you're going, and it's like you're not just at the desk, you're in the community. You have to do your visitations, you have to, and even with COVID, our staff members have still were still going out and following the protocols and everything, and we were still visiting our clientele in order to actually meet their needs. And I am happy to say, with following those protocols, that we didn't have any major cases of COVID-19 at all. So it goes to say, like, if you follow the protocols, you will be
Mhm.
fine.
That's good because many times in some segments
So
of our
I
society,
would,
go ahead, continue, go ahead. I was just saying that
so
sometimes in
I
our
was saying
society,
I would encourage.
you go. I'll let you go.
Sorry. Okay, so I would basically encourage anyone, if they want to get into the field of social work, to go ahead. Actually, I was reminiscing a bit about how I got into social work, which was kind of like, you graduate, you have your degree, and you want to work because you didn't just go to a university to stay at home. So in our system, I ended up going to the National Insurance Department, and then I was transferred to the Welfare Department. But I did not have a social work degree at that point in time. So it was like
Mhm.
you were working and learning the job at the same time. So there was like on the
Okay.
job kind of training. And I could tell you from the things that I would have seen, social work came to me like, oh, this is something very new. It's new to me because I didn't know honestly about social work before.
Mhm.
I didn't know about the principles. I didn't know what it involved. And to go out into communities and actually see, oh, is this the way some of the persons in our society basically live? You know, it was like a eye opener. And I think social work is a eye opener. It brings all the aspects of a society to the table so everyone can see exactly what is going on in every single household. So and then it provides a door or a window to actually address what these issues are in order to make our society better. And I think that that's an awesome task, and it is wonderful to be in a job like that.
Yes. And so what I hear you saying is that many of your colleagues were able to enter the welfare department and later obtain a degree in social work if that's what they wanted to do. And so it's very similar to some of my past work experience where I've worked in different agencies and we have different departments where one person may deal with finances, one person deals with foster care, one person deals with aging, one person deals with children, another person deals with mental health. And so what I hear you saying is that being exposed to on the job may spark an interest for some of you and some of my colleagues too. Many of them were in education initially, and so they went back and got their MSW degrees so that they can better effectively navigate, partner with communities on a massive scale. And so, as you talked about the things that happened in your country prior to the pandemic, with looking at your country as a tourist country. What else is your country? The things that someone who, like myself, has not had opportunity to visit yet, that one could know about your country. I know that some major historical events happened too in the last year, independence, and so all those various things are happening in your country as well. A lot of historical events as well.
Okay, so Barbados is it's small. It's 166 square miles, and we are predominantly from African descent. And we have 11 parishes, and it's a beautiful country. We have golden sand and crystal waters. You want to come and visit. You may want to stay. You are free to do so, but you have to come and visit. We also have a number of caves, and I would advise anyone who's coming to visit the two most popular caves. That's the Animal Flora Cave to the very north, and the Harston's Cave, which is absolutely beautiful. And when you just go on a scenic ride, and you're satisfied that you are in the right place to just relax and to work. And one writer said in one of our calypso songs, because that's part of our culture, calypso, they themed it, we live in a vacation. Imagine that. You're working and living, but you live in a vacation. We're actually here doing stuff every day that tourists want to come here and do. So we live
Yeah,
in a vacation. And
that's
I mean
wonderful.
that resonates so well with persons. So
Yes.
that's what it is. And I would encourage anybody to come. And I would be grateful if we could have a number of international social work persons actually
Hmm.
visiting our social work agencies as well, and
Hmm.
interacting with our staff. And if you have students, you can bring them and they can have practicum here as well. And
Yeah.
they would get to see what our society is about and practice in a different culture, and also just be in a relaxed environment.
Yes, living a vacation. That sounds wonderful. Golden sands, the golden beaches, and so having the opportunity to learn about another culture, our community members, brothers and sisters from Barbados, and you said 11 different parishes that reside
Yes.
on the country of Barbados. So it's very diverse, and so every parish may have their own distinctiveness that we can learn from. And so, as we look at the nuances, the culture, the music, the ability to um, make a living for any individuals, and so now that we're navigating through the pandemic. What are some of the systemic challenges of community members who reside not only in Barbados but just any country that you may be a tourist site? Any country that you may think could be a tourist site.
Mhm. So now we're open to tourism again. Lots of people
Mhm.
are coming in. We have the cruise ships; they're back here. We have the airplanes, and they're bringing in lots of people. We're a cricket nation in the Caribbean,
Mhm.
and lots of people are visiting for the cricket matches, which are currently going on. And one of the things that actually came up was that, okay, the protocols in your countries may have been relaxed in terms of
Yes.
COVID, but the protocols in this country have not yet been relaxed in light of
Okay.
COVID. So we
Okay.
find persons, they're coming and they're not masking up.
Yeah. Yeah.
They just want, they just living free, but still
Yeah.
we're insisting that they still put the mask on
Hmm.
because they're in such close proximity. So we're dependent on tourism, and
Yes.
that is something that has been, it's in discussion because we want to diversify our economy
Hmm.
into different fields. And we have a rich history here in Barbados as it stands. And we don't want the fact that, you know, you depend on one
Yes.
single type of industry in order to
Mhm.
make it, because you are definitely vulnerable. So we speak
Yes.
about our clientele being vulnerable, but a country on the whole could be very vulnerable in light
Hmm.
of, you know, our systems are the ways that we practice. So
Yes.
that is one of the items that we're trying to navigate as we open back our society to our tourism industry. The other thing is, I think we're going to have to do a lot of work in terms of our children who have been on lockdown for now 2 years basically. They're back out to school,
Okay.
but I mean, so much has been lost
Yeah.
because we've had children who did not actually have devices, so they were
Hmm.
not on online school.
Hmm.
And even those who had devices may had a problem with the electricity or internet service. So
Yes.
they've lost a lot. And
Hmm.
it's going to be like a trying to catch up
Yes.
with the place or the level that you need to be at in terms of your educational attainment. So
Hmm.
I find that, you know, social workers going to have to do a lot in terms of, you know, reaching out to the children, reaching out to the families, and actually helping also to reach that stage, because everything is interconnected. And we just can't say, oh, it's the teachers that have to do it, because every facet of our community, look at the systems perspective,
Yes.
everything is connected. So we all have to, you know, work together in order to make a difference in the lives of our children coming out of COVID lockdowns and
Yes.
online
I, I,
school.
I, I agree. Our children have been impacted on so many different levels. Education, mental health, being isolated, not being able to see their friends. And I know in our country, there are different messages. We know that you talked about when we come to visit your country or other countries, um, they have different standards. And so some places in North America, masks are, it's an option. But we do know that mask is a preventive measure in that process, because so many people just want to go back to normal, but things are going to be different for a while. And so we have to find a balance on how we could make sure that we're safe when we're going to be in close proximity of each other as we move forward. When you talk about different funding streams of your country and other locations that may be tourist sites, uh, social workers have the ability to, like you said, look at it from a systems perspective, looking at it. So, what are other tools that we can utilize so that we could make sure that the opportunities for our community members are met, even when we do or do not have tourist sites, tourists? Because when we know we have environmental things going on, or we have another pandemic, there has to be other uh, avenues for community members to care for one another as we move forward. So as we look at the challenges, what are some of the success stories? We know there are some things that emerged, some resiliency that emerged from your community as a result of the last 2 years. What are some success stories? Things that we can elevate at this time.
I think we have to look, as you say, resilience. We're a resilient society, and persons normally come together in times of crises. So, talk about natural disasters or man made disasters. people work together in order to assist one another in their communities to get it done. And
Yeah.
this really has been so for years. It's like, okay, we might be separate if everything is normal. But when it
Yeah.
comes to a crisis, everybody just
Come together.
bands together and make things happen for each other because they recognize in each other the vulnerability and the strength in unity in order to get it done. So I think that's very important. It's a like a indicator or a factor in our society which really gels well with resilience and making it out of any type of crisis because you
Hmm.
can do it together. So I
Yeah.
really like that about our society. And you can see that all over. We have the Russian Ukraine war, and you see so many people coming together and working together in order to help those vulnerable people right now.
Hmm.
So I think it's just human nature basically that
Hmm.
comes out that sometimes it's hidden
Yes.
because of a number of factors which could be quite selfish sometimes, but
Hmm.
we actually bring it out in times of crisis.
Yes, thank you for highlighting. Many times a crisis may cause post growth, post traumatic growth, in that where communities come together. Where we may not see our neighbors, but now because of exposure, because of opportunity, and because of time, because of proximity, we're able to connect on a different level, and we're able to meet the needs of our community on a massive level scale in the process. So we want to
And
thank
just
you.
let me say something
Go ahead.
to
Hmm.
with regards to COVID, because COVID brought so much fear into people because you didn't know what it is. But
Hmm.
even in light of this fear, people were still reaching out to persons, even if they were ill, to try to
Hmm.
help them, to transport them, to give to
Hmm.
them basic necessities. And at their own risks, at their
Yes.
own health risk, but
Hmm.
they still thought it was like this is what you need to do. You need to
Hmm.
take care of each other. And I love that about our society because it just shows like when really it comes to the hard facts of life, we come together and we make it happen. And love is really the hallmark of everything that you do. So sometimes you don't think about, okay, yes, we know that is it. We're going to take all our precautions, but I got to help this person who's in need.
Yes. Yes. And so that those are principles of social workers, service, the dignity of every individual, the value of them, and placing sometimes ourselves at risk, but taking those precautionary measures because we really didn't know what was the unknown as we dealt with this, but we knew that the lives of our community members are vital and important. We need each other, and so we had to come together during this unknown time to make sure that we were okay in that process. And so as we close up our time on today, we want to thank you for being with us. If you have any closing thoughts, anything that you want to share with emerging social workers or seasoned social workers that you care to share.
Yes. I Well, I mentioned before I was like out of it because of my back.
Hmm.
And I want to say to us that self care is very, very important. And sometimes we, as social workers, we tend to go, 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 go like the Energizer Bunny because we think that there's so many people depending on us, and if we don't do it, then it's not going to get done. And
Yeah.
we also need to be able to care for ourselves, care for our bodies, care for our families, care for our friends, and this whole aspect of self-care is really emerging. We have a number of angry people in
Hmm.
society, and we have angry social workers too because you
Yeah.
have so much work to do, and then the incentives are very, very little,
Yeah.
and then the community of social work sometimes isn't always there. And I think that advocacy is very, very important for social workers not only externally, but internally for ourselves. We need to
Mhm.
be able to advocate for ourselves and for our community of social workers. And I think coming together in terms of the social work agencies and professional associations, we need to do more of that. We need to have
Yes.
more meetings with international associations of social workers. We need to expand the membership down to us here in the Caribbean, to persons in Africa, India, China, wherever they are doing social workers. We need to come together as a big body and have meetings as social workers, because we are we are a large body and we are a powerful body, and we can
Yes.
advocate to make a difference in the lives not only of other persons but our lives as well. And I think that's very, very important that we actually look at more events where we're together and where we understand each other and where we fight for our rights, and as a profession,
Mhm.
because sometimes persons tend to want to water down what is professional social work and say,
Mhm.
oh, y'all just there giving out things, or but that's not it. So we
Yeah.
need to keep our profession as a profession and to
Mhm.
keep our it professional, basically, and not allow other people to water it down. We need to be able to do it together. We need to come together more. We need more meetings. I know people talk about meetings, but this is a different type of meeting, because this is a unity meeting and an
Yes.
advocacy meeting for ourselves and for our community.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you. Pause for a
And
second.
that's what I would like to say in terms of social workers coming together.
Thank you. Thank you. It's very important that we come together. You talked about during this pandemic, during the crises, we were able to see the community rise and come together to make sure the needs of every person were met in that process, and how social workers, we need to work together and learn from each other. There's so much we can learn from you. We can learn from each other and around the globe. But we talked about social work as a macro practice, and we do global work, have global impact. And so we need to come together on different levels so that we could partner, learn together, and to make sure that people understand what a social worker truly is, and that the power that we can partner with communities to bring about transformational change, sustainable change, because social workers make a difference. So we thank you, Ms. Pauline Miller, for being with here on us on today with Macro Social Work Stories, sharing your story, highlighting the work, that great work you're doing, and your colleagues in the country of Barbados. And so we're going to play an outro, and we're going to put you in the green room, and we're going to thank you for being with us on Macro Social Work Stories. And so we please join us next week. Go ahead.